Wow, so, you guys really liked the Armored Core video, huh? Alright, well, I'm a man of the people, and I was gonna play these games anyway leading up to the release of Armored Core 6, so here's a follow-up video about how my experience with Armored Core Project Phantasma was. If you guys continue to enjoy these videos and they continue to do well, then I'm more than willing to review the entire Armored Core franchise. So let's just pick things back up here with one of the weirdest sequels to a game that I've played in a while. Armored Core Project Phantasma is a standalone expansion for Armored Core released only 5 months after the original game. If you're not familiar with standalone expansions, it just means that the developers took the original game, gave it a new story to play through, added a bunch of new content, and released it as its own product that can be played without owning the base game. So I go to boot up Project Phantasma, and the first choice I'm faced with is whether or not to import my save file from the original game. By doing so, I would bring over my AC along with all the credits and parts that I owned at the end of the game. And I actually decided to not do this for my playthrough. I enjoy the progression and challenge of starting the game with the default items and working my way through from there, and since this game was sold as a standalone product from the original, I wanted to judge it on its own merit rather than as a small addition to the base game. So loading into the main menu, I of course started by immediately checking out the garage and the shop, especially since I knew that Project Phantasma would be adding a bunch of new AC parts that didn't exist in the original game. And when opening the shop, I was greeted with the realization that FromSoftware actually lets new players start with 100,000 credits to spend this time, rather than the 0 credits you start with in the original game. This meant that I was free to immediately start mixing and matching parts and customizing my new AC build. I made a build real quick that I thought would be fun and continued exploring the menu. I was then greeted by something new, the arena. This is a ranked ladder of AC pilots all fighting it out in one-on-one combat to rise in the ranks and earn cash through doing so. So I decided that even though I hadn't even done my first mission, I had to check this out. I got into my first arena duel and I loved it. Easily my favorite part of the first game was the rare fight against other ACs, and this was like a whole dedicated side mode just for that. Even better, you don't lose any credits from replenishing ammo or repairing your AC after a match, so it really is just a fun side mode that you can earn some extra cash from. Some Ravens you beat in the arena will even grant you new AC parts after beating them that can't be bought from the shop, so if you really want to experiment with as many parts as possible, it's worthwhile to check the arena out. And due to the lack of consequences, the unique perks you can earn, and the quick in and out combat, the arena incentivized me to experiment with new and wacky builds even more than I did in the first game. Needless to say, I'm a big fan of the arena and really hope that it becomes more of a mainstay throughout the series. And judging by the title of the next game, there just might be hope for that after all. Also, for those that watched my video on the first game, I got a lot better with the controls during my time in the arena. I'm still nowhere close to having mastered them, but I'm slowly getting there. But after a good few arena matches, I finally decided to start the story campaign. And the first thing to get out of the way is that Project Phantasma is significantly shorter than the original game. I finished this game's campaign in about 15 missions, whereas the original had roughly 35. But that being said, the missions here are much better than in the base game. The missions in Armored Core 1 were these short, sweet little sections of combat. Almost every single mission was you being dropped into a small space, being told to clear out the enemies, and then you were done. In Project Phantasma, the missions are much larger on the whole, so much so that FromSoft felt the need to add in an AC part that expanded the ammo capacity of your weapons. And thank God they did, because for some of these missions, you're really gonna need it. Beyond that though, the missions are also just of a much higher quality overall. Rather than just being about the combat, these missions have real objectives and a good amount of variety to them. One mission you'll be raiding an underground lab, then the next you'll be staging a rescue mission, then defending your home base. It's actually really impressive to see just how much of an improvement was made here in only 5 months. The campaign also has a story that is told to you through the missions and through actual characters, rather than being fully told through emails from companies like the first game. The story here revolves around the fact that a group known as the Doomsday Organization is developing a new secret weapon codenamed, and I know you won't believe this, Project Phantasma.
He said it! He said it!
Throughout the game, you'll be trying to gain info on this project to prevent its development, and definitely the most memorable part of this campaign are the encounters with your new rival, Stinger. He's an AC pilot working for the Doomsday Organization and possibly as a test subject for Project Phantasma itself, though this is really only hinted at once and then never mentioned again, so I'm not 100% sure on that one. Regardless, by the end of the campaign, you'll have fought him over and over again, and he does in fact end up piloting the completed version of Project Phantasma, which ends up being a program designed to integrate humans into new weapons that are essentially small but heavily equipped ships. And where in the first video I ranted for like 3 minutes about the final mission and the 9-ball fight, that's not going to happen here because I actually really liked this final fight. It's nowhere near as difficult as 9-ball was, but it's enjoyable because while Phantasma is very powerful, it doesn't feel anywhere near as unfair as 9-ball did. That, on top of the fact that they decided to make the final boss fight its own dedicated mission, so there wasn't a 20-minute run up to the boss every time you wanted to attempt it. Last week, I left the first game incredibly frustrated, but now I've left Project Phantasma feeling satisfied and accomplished, and I feel like the changes in how they handled this final encounter are the main reason for that. That's not to say I didn't get frustrated during this game though. The arena that I loved so much actually ended up being a large source of frustration for me after the early parts of the game. I was really determined to become the #1 ranked Raven in the arena, but at about the rank 30 mark, I started to really struggle. I got stuck on one AC fight for a long time and decided to Google what parts the pilot was using to see if there was anything that I could learn from his build to apply to my own. This was when I learned that he, and most of the arena pilots coming after him, had Human Plus. Human Plus is something that I never mentioned in the first video, and that's purely because I never ended up getting it in my initial playthrough. It was a program developed by Murakumo Millennium, one of the main corporations in the first game's story, that would integrate a select few Ravens with their ACs in order to grant them abilities unlike any other pilots out there. The player will be selected for the Human Plus program if they dip below 50,000 credits in debt, which is why I never ended up finding it in my initial playthrough of the first game. When a Raven is Human Plus, they gain numerous benefits such as being able to ignore weight restrictions on their AC, being able to fire shoulder-mounted weapons without crouching down, enhanced booster performance, and more. And one of the reasons that 9-ball from the first game felt so overpowered is that he actually was Human Plus. But getting back to the point, I learned that the arena pilots from this point on would mostly have Human Plus, so I decided to level the playing field and try to go 50,000 credits in debt. I did this and nothing happened. So I googled to figure out what I did wrong, and players actually can't go into Human Plus in Project Phantasma. The only way to play this game with Human Plus is to go into the program in the base game and then import your save file when you start up Project Phantasma. So my decision to start a brand new file for challenge sake finally came back to bite me in the ass, and in the worst possible way. And the annoying part is, this and other things not obtainable in this game from the original are still in the game files and commonly used by enemies. It's just that FromSoftware didn't give new players a way to earn those items without buying the first game. If I wanted to climb the ranks faster, nearly every single match would have me at a large disadvantage no matter what I did. So I would need to spend a ton of time getting absurdly good at this game to be able to get up to the #1 pilot spot. And for the sake of getting through this video in a timely manner, I decided to leave the arena alone from this point on, and just be complacent with my 28th spot ranking on the leaderboard. But the next time I get the chance to become #1, things will be different. Overall, I enjoyed my time with Project Phantasma. It really does feel like a shorter, but slightly sweeter version of the original game. And aside from the things that you could obtain in the first game that can't be obtained in this one, I feel like this was an overall improvement from the first. A small improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. If anything, my one overarching complaint with Project Phantasma is that it doesn't feel as complete as the first game did. It definitely feels less like a full, satisfying experience of its own, and more just like a DLC for the first game, which is exactly what it is, but the fact that some new players would have bought this and played it first before the original game means that some players would have gotten a really weird introduction to Armored Core. So all up, I'm going to give Armored Core Project Phantasma a 6.0. But what do you think? Those of you that have played the game, that are just learning about it for the first time, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to go ahead and leave a like, a comment, a subscription, anything to let me and the algorithm know that you did enjoy. It helps out a lot, so I really appreciate it. And hey, if you enjoyed this video and you haven't seen it yet, then you definitely enjoy my last one where we talked about the original Armored Core, so I'll have that linked right here on screen.